Caleb didn't plan to sleep at the Sycamore Motor Inn. It was one of those places you only notice when you're too tired to keep driving low building. 2 stories, doors that opened straight to the night. A neon tree buzzing like a trapped insect. The rain had been falling since Tennessee, soft and steady, wiping the world smooth. His phone said the next real town was 30 miles. His eyes said he wouldn't make it 10. He pulled into the lot and let the wipers die in the middle of a swipe, like even they were done for the day. The lobby light wazing. That felt like permission. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and pine cleaner, with a thread of old cigarette smoke under everything, the way secrets sit under polite conversations. The counterbell didn't need pressing. A woman was already there, leaning on her elbows like she'd been waiting. She wore a cardigan the same color as the rain, hair pinned up, name tag crooked Marla. She had the kind of face that looked kind even when it was tired. Rough night? She asked without judgment. Long road, Caleb said. He slid his card toward her. Just need a bed and a door that locks. Can do. Her fingers moved on the keyboard, the old motel system clicking like a sewing machine. We're quiet this time of year. I can do you a king on the ground floor or an upstairs double if you like height. Ground's fine. She didn't look at him when she said, almost absently, not 103. He blinked. Pardon? Nothing, she said soft, like she'd meant to think it, and it slipped out loud. System's touchy. She smiled quick. You traveling for business or running from it? Both, he said, which was the truth in a way that didn't require more words. The printer coughed out a key sleeve. She slid a plastic card in, wrote a number across the paper. 104. Park right in front. Ice machines at the far end by the soda. Her eyes flicked past him to the rain, then back. If you hear the freight at 2, it's normal. Tracks are close. If you hear anything else, it's not for you. He laughed like it was a joke. She didn't. He took the card, nodded, and stepped back into the night. The thin aluminum awning pinged with drops. A vending machine glowed like a small aquarium, humming louder than it had to. He passed a door with a faded 103 on it and a Do Not Disturb tag that looked older than the tagline on the neon sign. The room's curtains were closed, but warm light lined their edges, the way a candle outlines a paper bag. Somewhere inside, a TV murmured, a loud, soft flicker that isn't sound so much as movement pretending to be sound. He stopped without meaning to. Someone was definitely in there. He could see the shadow of a figure pass in front of the curtains, slow, then still. Not a shape you could name, a person-shaped pause. He kept walking because that's what you do when your body tells you it's none of your business. His room 104 smelled like motel air and clean sheets, an honest smell. He put his duffel in the chair, kicked off wet shoes, turned the heater to on, and the TV to weather. The map showed a green smear marching east. He texted, I'm in. Late start TMRW to no one in particular, that old habit of sending proof to the universe, and tossed the phone on the nightstand. That's when the keycard sleeve slid from his pocket and landed face up. The number written in blue ink wasn't 104 anymore. It read 103. The 3 was unmistakable, heavier at the bottom, like the pen had hesitated and pushed through. He picked it up, turned it over. The back was blank. The front still said Sycamore Motor Inn, a phone number, and your room 103. He checked the keycard itself. Someone had labeled it in Sharpie. 104. System's touchy, he said to the empty room, meaning to make fun of himself for caring. The heater coughed. The TV muttered about flood warnings. The rain performed its steady trick on the window. He lay back and stared at the textured ceiling, counted the swirls like stars you could touch if you cared enough. He was almost under when the phone on the nightstand lit, screen bright in the dim. No number, just an old-looking label. Front desk, he answered. Yeah? For a second, there was only the sound of the rain listening to itself. Then a man's voice, not young, not old, warm like a radio after midnight. Sir, sorry to bother. We've had a cancellation. If you'd prefer, we can move you to 103. Caleb sat up. The heater clicked off like it wanted to hear the answer. I'm fine, he said, already in bed. A pause. The kind that has a shape. It's closer to the ice, the voice said, as if that mattered to anyone who wasn't a ghost with a thirst. I'm fine, he said again. Thanks. He made his voice friendlier. Appreciate it. Of course, the man said. And for a second, Caleb thought he heard the tone of the lobby, the bell counter, the card printer breathing. If you change your mind, the door's open. The line clicked dead. He stared at the phone like it might explain itself, then set it down and told the room out loud. That was nothing. Saying it made it smaller. He closed his eyes. He dreamed that he was standing outside 103 with his hand on the handle, the metal warm under his fingers. He dreamed the key card wouldn't work because there wasn't a slot. Only a keyhole and a key he didn't remember owning. Heavy and cold, hung from his hand with a cardboard fob that said always. He dreamed the door opened anyway, slow and polite, and the room inside was lit like a photo from a brochure. Bed made too perfectly. TV on butt showing a frozen frame of rain. Bathroom door ajar with a light you could hear. He dreamed the air smelled faintly of perfume and dust and something else. Old water, maybe. He dreamed a woman's voice said, very close to his ear, "You're late." He woke to the sound of footsteps on the exterior walkway. Not hurried, not sneaking. The steady confidence of someone who belongs. They reached his door, stopped. He held his breath. The shadow under his door darkened. Then the footsteps moved on. He got up, pushed the curtain aside with 2 fingers. The walkway was empty except for Thace Machine's red eye and the rain falling straight. No wind to argue with it. Across the way, Own 3's curtain glowed the color of a kitchen light left on for someone who isn't coming back. The TV flash moved across it, slow, like a storm at sea seen from far away. He was about to let the curtain fall when the light in 103 went out. Not a fade, a switch. The dark pressed right up to the glass. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, a single vibration like a throat clearing. He picked it up. A new text from unknown 103 is booked. 03 is empty. If you hear the shower, don't knock. He stared until the message blurred into the glow. He looked at the door again. The do not disturb tag on 103 had turned on its string, the words facing the night like a mouth. Caleb put the phone down very carefully, like it was sleeping. He lay back and put the pillow over his ear the way he had when he was a kid, and his parents argued upstairs. He told himself that sleep would erase the weird like rain erases chalk. At 2:11 a.m., the water pipes in the wall hummed alive. A shower turned on somewhere close, 1 room over, exact. The sound was steady, grateful. It went on long enough to make him map the lines in the ceiling again, long enough to make him remember he was thirsty. He didn't knock. He dreamed of a door that opened from both sides, and outside, the neon tree hummed and hummed, as if it knew every name that had ever signed the 103 line, and every night it had stayed empty anyway. When sunlight finally showed up, it wasn't much just a pale rinse across the wet parking lot, turning every puddle into a mirror. Caleb hadn't really slept. The pipes had gone quiet around 4, but even in silence he could hear the shower in his head, running steady as a clock. He got dressed, packed up, and opened the door to cool morning air that smelled like metal and wet dust. The motel looked different in daylight, smaller, almost shy. The neon tree that had hummed through the night was off now, a dull sign hanging above the office. Across the row, room 103 looked completely normal. Closed curtains, no light showing, no sound. For a second he wondered if he'd imagined the glow at all. Marla was sweeping the walkway outside the office. She smiled when she saw him. "Morning, stranger. You look like you wrestled with the sheets." Caleb tried to joke back, but it came out thin. "They won." She leaned on her broom. "Storm kept you up?" "Something like that," he said. "Hey, there's somebody in 103, right?" "I heard water running all night." Marla's smile flickered, small as a pulse. "That's so?" "Yeah," he said. "Thought maybe the pipes were connected. Just sounded close." She looked toward the second row, eyes narrowing a little. 103's been booked, but nobody checked in. "Happens all the time." He frowned. "Booked but empty." She nodded like it was a phrase she'd said before. "Online reservations. Sometimes people pay, don't show. Sometimes the system holds it. Either way, we don't open it till the computer says it's clear." Caleb squinted at the closed curtain. "So it's empty?" "Officially," she said. He waited for the part where she'd laugh, say something about haunted rooms or motel folklore, but she didn't. She just went back to sweeping, her face turned away. He said, "Who called my room last night?" She stopped mid-sweep. "Nobody. Phones don't go room to room anymore. System's been down since spring." Caleb stared. "Someone said they were from the front desk. Offered to move me to 103. Marla's broom handle stilled. "Did you?" "Did I what?" "Move." He shook his head. "No." "Good," she said quietly. Then she pushed the broom again, slower this time. "Coffee's in the lobby. Helps if you've seen something you shouldn't." He started to laugh, but didn't. The sound caught in his throat like a hiccup. Inside the lobby, the smell of coffee was too strong, almost perfumed. A small radio on the counter whispered a song from the 70s, the kind that sounds like memory pretending to be music. A notebook sat open beside the register, filled with neat handwriting, rooms-cleaned, dates, initials. He flipped a page. 103's line was blank all the way down, date after date after date. Marla came in behind him, wiping her hands on a towel. "You heading out or staying another night?" He hesitated. He should have said no. The road was clear, his tank was full, and every sensible part of him wanted to be miles away by lunch. But something about that room, its light, its silence had lodged in him like a splinter. He said, "Maybe one more night. Just need rest before I drive again." She studied him a moment, then nodded. "All right. Same room?" "Sure." She printed the receipt, sliding it across. He noticed her hand shook a little when she wrote the number, 104. He took the keycard. "What happens if somebody does show up for 103? Marla's voice softened. "Nobody ever does." Later that morning, Caleb walked to the vending machines for a soda. The sun had already lost its warmth, the air thick and stale. A housekeeper's cart stood near the stairwell, mop leaning against it, towel folded too neatly. Nobody was around. He took a drink and turned and froze. The Do Not Disturb tag on 103 was gone. The door stood slightly open, not wide, not inviting, just cracked, a sliver of darkness behind it. He stared for a long time. The air around it felt colder, though the sun hit it directly. The TV inside murmured faintly, a sound like ocean static. He looked back toward the office. No sign of Marla. He stepped closer. Hello? The door didn't move. The smell coming out wasn't rot or mold, just air that hadn't been breathed in too long. He reached out, fingertips grazing the metal. Warm, then a sharp click. The door shut. Just like that, no draft, no wind, no reason. The sound was small but final. He backed away, pulse thudding. That's when the light in 103's window flickered on again. Same warm yellow, same stillness inside. He whispered, booked but empty. The air around him felt like it was listening. From behind him, the broom handle clacked once against the railing. He turned. Marla stood there, eyes calm, face pale in the sunlight. You shouldn't stand too close, she said. He swallowed hard. There's someone in there. She nodded once. There always is. The wind carried the faintest echo of running water. Marla looked at him for a long moment, then said softly, if you hear the shower again tonight, don't knock. That second night, Caleb told himself he was only staying to prove a point, to himself, to logic, maybe to the part of him that still believed the world ran on rules. He ate a sandwich from the vending machine, scrolled his phone for half an hour, and told himself he'd film the weird room, just to have something to show later when he laughed about all this. Evidence makes things smaller. By 10 o'clock, the motel was asleep again. The sound of the highway in the distance had dropped to a low hum. He sat near the window with his phone camera pointed at 103, zoomed in enough to catch its pale curtains and the glow behind them. For an hour, nothing happened. The air conditioner coughed occasionally. A truck passed. He started to nod off. Then, right as he set the phone down, the curtain in 103 moved. Not a slow sway, not a draft someone had walked past. The light inside shifted, like a figure had blocked it for half a second. He picked up the phone and hit record. The red dot blinked steady. He whispered into it, half embarrassed, room 103, supposed to be empty. The light flickered again. A shadow crossed the curtain taller this time, moving left to right. He adjusted his focus. The window glass caught a reflection from somewhere behind him, his own outline. Faint, but for one heartbeat, there was another reflection beside his, standing closer than it should have been. He turned. The room behind him was empty. He looked back at the phone screen. The reflection was gone, but the curtain in 103 had stopped moving. The light dimmed to half. Then his phone screen glitched, just a split-second frame freeze, the way video sometimes hiccups. But when the picture came back, the Do Not Disturb tag on a 103's handle was back. He hadn't seen anyone put it there. He lowered the phone slowly. The air in his room felt thicker, like humidity after lightning. He checked the time, 1:08 a.m. The heater clicked off. The silence that followed had weight. He replayed the footage. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then he noticed it. When the shadow crossed the curtain, the outline wasn't human. Too long in the limbs. Too sharp at the angles. It moved wrong, like something trying to remember how walking works. The next second, static crawled across the video. The screen went black. He checked the gallery. The file was still there a minute, 12 seconds. But the thumbnail showed only the yellow curtain frozen in place. No light, no shadow, no sound. He deleted it without meaning to. His finger just moved. He sat on the edge of the bed, breathing through his nose. The taste of metal filled his mouth, the kind that comes from fear or blood. At 2:11, the pipe started again, water rushing through the walls, steady and smooth like before. He turned off his lamp, letting the room fall into half-dark. The light from 103 painted faint bars on his curtain. He whispered to the dark. Marla said not to knock. The pipes hummed louder, almost rhythmic now. For a crazy second, it sounded like breathing. He stood, walked to the wall they shared, pressed his ear against it. The tiles were warm. The sound wasn't just water, it was something underneath it. A shape of movement, a muffled voice. He whispered, hello? From the other side, soft and clear, a woman's voice answered. You're late. He froze. That same voice from the dream. He stumbled back, heart pounding so hard it made his ribs ache. The light in 103 flickered, once, twice, then went dark again. The pipes stopped. The silence afterward was worse than any noise. He waited, staring at the wall until his eyes watered. Then he noticed a faint wet mark spreading across the wallpaper, slow and deliberate. It wasn't leaking from above. It was forming words, dark letters rising like bruises. Always booked. He backed away until he hit the dresser. The stain kept spreading, curling into a second line. Never empty. He blinked, and it was gone. Just old beige wallpaper again, slightly cracked. He whispered to himself, dreaming. Still dreaming. The air conditioner clicked back on. The room hummed back to life like nothing had happened. He sat down, shaking, grabbed his phone again, and opened the motel's booking site. The listing loaded instantly. Sycamore Motor Inn, 12 available rooms. He scrolled. Every room had a small green circle next to it, except one. 103 occupied. He tapped it. The details popped up. Booked since 1971, last updated in progress. No photo. No price. Just a single gray button. Do not modify reservation. His screen dimmed automatically. When he tapped it to wake, the site was gone. Back to the home page. He turned the phone off. Outside, something heavy moved across the walkway, slow, deliberate, like someone dragging a bag or suitcase. He didn't look, didn't breathe. The sound stopped right outside his door, and then came 3 slow knocks, not on his door, on the one next to it. Room 103. He heard the doorknob twist, the faint creak of hinges, and then the water started again. When morning came, Caleb didn't bother pretending to have slept. The sun had already climbed over the ridge, but the light felt cold, weak, like it had to fight its way through the fog. He splashed water on his face, checked the mirror for signs that he was still himself, and went straight to the lobby. Marla was there, as always, behind the counter with the radio whispering another song, tooled to name. She didn't look surprised to see him early. She just poured a cup of coffee, pushed it toward him, and said quietly, "You heard it again, didn't you?" He didn't answer at first, just stared at the black swirl in his cup. "I think there's someone in that room," he said finally. "I saw movement, heard a voice." Marla's hands stayed still. What did it say? He looked up. It said, "I was late." Her mouth tightened, like she'd heard that line before. She nodded once. Slow. "They all hear that." "They?" he asked. Marla didn't answer. She walked to the back office and came out carrying a thick old guest ledge, the kind that still used pen and carbon paper. The pages were yellowed, the corners bent. She opened it halfway, then turned it around so he could see. Room numbers ran down the left side, neat columns of names and dates stretching back decades. Every line looked ordinary until he saw 103. The entries stopped halfway down the page. The last one was written in fading blue ink. A.L. Ray, July 19th, 1971. Checked in, checkout, pending. No signature under the checked out column. No red stamp. Just that word, pending. Caleb traced the line with his finger. "Who's A.L.? Ray?" Marla exhaled softly. "Was." He looked at her. "What happened?" She hesitated, then said, "He was a salesman. Came through every other month. Always asked for the same room. Room 103. Said it felt quiet, like a place where the road finally stopped moving. Stayed 3 nights. Always left before dawn. Never bothered anyone. The kind you forget until they're gone." Caleb waited. "One summer," she went on. "He didn't leave. Housekeeping went to clean. Door was locked from the inside. No sound. They called the sheriff. They opened it." Her voice trailed off, eyes unfocused. "Empty. No luggage, no clothes. Bed made. Lights on. Coffee cup still warm." He frowned. "So he just vanished?" "More or less." "And you kept renting the room after that?" She gave a short laugh without humor. "Tried to. But after that night, the system changed. Every time we checked him out, the name came back. Different handwriting. Same letters. A.L. Ray. The reservation never clears." Caleb stared at the ledger. The ink looked new in some places, like it had been rewritten again and again. "Maybe someone keeps pranking you editing the records." She shook her head. "We changed systems 3 times. Digital now. Still there." He rubbed his temples. "You should just close the room." "We tried," she said softly. "Twice. Once we boarded it up for renovation. Next morning, the boards were gone. Curtains closed. Light on. Guest already checked in." Her tone wasn't dramatic. It was the voice of someone who had already stopped fighting. Something years ago. Caleb leaned closer. "You've been hearing things too, haven't you?" She didn't deny it. "Every night around 2, water runs, light flickers. Sometimes you can smell cologne, the kind no one sells anymore. Sometimes the front desk phone rings once and stops." He swallowed hard. "Why stay open?" Marla smiled faintly. "Because people keep coming. You came, didn't you?" He started to reply, but the words tangled. She was right. He could have kept driving. But something about that exit, that neon tree, had pulled him off the road before he'd even thought to resist. Marla closed the ledger gently. "Most people leave after one night. The ones who stay longer start seeing things they can't leave behind." He pushed the cup aside. "You think this place is cursed?" She tilted her head. "I think some places remember better than people do." For a long moment neither spoke. The air smelled faintly of old coffee and rain seeping through the walls. Finally she said, "You can check out now if you want. I'll comp the second night." He looked at her, at the kindness behind the exhaustion, and shook his head. "Not yet. A need to see inside that room." Marla's eyes went cold, flat like glass. "That's not a good idea. Neither is pretending it's fine." "You think opening the door will fix it?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. "It'll make it real." She sighed, the sound heavy as wet paper. "You want a key?" He nodded. She went behind the counter, opened a drawer, and took out a small brass key knot, a card, not electronic, just an old-fashioned key with a tarnished tag that read 103. The ring creaked as she slid it across the counter. "Don't use it after dark," she said. He picked it up. "Why?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because after dark, someone else already does." The words hung there, simple and steady, like a truth that didn't care if he believed it. He left the lobby with the key cold in his hand. The fog outside had started to thicken again, curling low along the parking lot like smoke that had nowhere left to go. He looked at the closed curtain of 103. The light behind it pulsed faintly, not a flicker this time, a more like breathing. He said quietly, "I'll open it anyway." And the motel seemed to listen. The neon sign buzzed once, louder than before, and the sound of distant pipes came to life beneath his feet, steady, pulsing like a heartbeat under the floor. By the time the sky began to dim, Caleb had convinced himself that he wasn't scared, just curious. Curiosity, he told himself, was cleaner than fear. Fear makes you freeze. Curiosity makes you move. And he had to move. The key in his pocket felt heavier than it should have, like it had been waiting for years to be held again. He stood outside room 103 around dusk, the air damp and cool, the kind of twilight where the world seems half asleep. The fog had started to rise from the drainage ditch behind the building, spilling over the walkway in soft waves. The other guests were gone, or quite enough to seem gone. He reached for the knob. It was cold, too cold for metal that had been touched by the sun all day. The Do Not Disturb tag was back, hanging straight, motionless in the still air. For a second, he remembered Marla's voice. "Don't use it after dark." He turned the key anyway. The lock gave with a single, clean click. The sound was so ordinary it made his skin crawl. He pushed the door open. The first thing he noticed was the air cool and dry, untouched by time. It didn't smell like dust or mildew or old carpet. It smelled like nothing, like a photograph that had forgotten how to age. The room was perfect. Too perfect. The bed was made tight, corners sharp, pillow centered. A single suitcase sat on the chair, brown leather, old-fashioned, as if waiting for someone to turn from a short walk. A hat hung on the bedpost. The TV was on, but frozen, one still image of static that didn't move, didn't hum. He stepped inside. The floor didn't creak. The light in the ceiling flickered once, as though acknowledging him, then steadied. He said quietly, "Hello?" Nothing. The bathroom door was half open. The light inside glowed faint yellow, and he could hear faint dripping. He walked closer, hand brushing the edge of the wall, fingertips tracing wallpaper that felt smooth but warm like skin under a fever. The dripping grew louder. He pushed the bathroom door open. The sink faucet was running, clear water trickling in a steady stream. The mirror above it was fogged, though the air was cold. He leaned closer. His reflection was faint, blurred. The fog on the glass began to shift, slow, like a hand wiping across it from the other side. Letters formed backward, scrawled by something unseen. "Welcome back." Caleb stumbled back, hitting the doorframe. The faucet stopped by itself. The word stayed in the mirror for a few seconds longer, then vanished like breath. He stood there, heart hammering, and noticed something he hadn't before. The bathroom floor tiles were slightly warped, as if someone had been standing there for a very long time, pacing in small circles. He turned back toward the main room. The suitcase on the chair was open now. Inside were men's clothes, neatly folded. A white shirt, a gray tie, socks wrapped in pairs. On top of them lay a folded piece of paper. He picked it up. The handwriting was neat, looping. The ink faded, but not smudged. July 21st, 1971. "I've been here too long. If someone finds this, tell Marla I checked out. Tell her I found the quiet I was looking for." There was no signature. He felt the paper tremble in his hands, though the air was still. The wall clock above the bed read 2:37, its second hand twitching like a muscle trying to move but failing. He turned toward the door. It was closed. He hadn't closed it. He tried the knob. It wouldn't turn. He twisted harder. The metal didn't budge. "Marla?" he called. His voice sounded wrong, muted, like it had to push through something thick before reaching the air. No answer. He pulled his phone out, tried the flashlight. The screen flickered once, then went black. He held the power button until his thumb ached, but it stayed dead. Something behind him shifted, the faint creak of a mattress, the sound of someone sitting down slowly. He turned. The bed was still made, but the pillow had a faint depression, as if a head had just rested there. Then the TV came to life, no static now, just a faint gray glow. The sound was low, distant, like a record playing in another room. A voice, smooth and steady, came through the speakers. "You're late, Mr. Ray." Caleb's breath caught. He whispered, "I'm not him." The voice paused. Then, almost gently, "Everyone says that." The glow from the TV brightened until it filled the room, swallowing the corners in white light. Caleb shielded his eyes, stumbled backward, felt the doorknob twist under his hand, and then nothing. When the light faded, he was standing outside again. The door to 103 was closed, the Do Not Disturb tag swaying slightly as if touched by a passing hand. He looked down. The brass key was gone. In his hand was something else, a small, folded piece of paper, damp and cold. He opened it slowly. The writing was his own. Checked in, Caleb R. 2025. Checkout pending. Caleb didn't remember walking back to his own room. He just remembered light, and then the sound of rain starting up again, tapping on the metal awning like a heartbeat trying to restart itself. He sat on the bed until morning without sleeping, staring at the key imprint it had left on his palm. His mind kept circling the same thought. If I leave, it ends. At dawn, he threw his bag in the car and turned the key. The engine caught instantly, loud and real. For the first time since he'd arrived, the air felt alive. He checked the rearview mirror. The motel stood small and dull behind him. Neon tree turned off, fog crawling low over the parking lot like tired smoke. He drove. The road ahead stretched empty and wet. No other cars, no birds, no billboards, just gray sky and asphalt. 10 minutes in, he turned on the radio. Static. He switched stations. All static. Even the digital display glitched, showing a line of flickering zeros. He shut it off and drove faster. At 20 minutes, he passed a green road sign. Exit 237 Sycamore Motor Inn, 1 mile. He blinked, leaned closer. No, it couldn't be. He'd left that exit 20 minutes ago. He must have looped back somehow. Maybe he missed a turn. He took the next ramp, merged onto a 2-lane road heading south. 5 minutes later, another sign appeared. Exit 237, Sycamore Motor Inn, 1 mile. He slowed. The same cracked sign, same bullet hole in the corner, the same crooked arrow pointing left. He kept driving straight this time. No turns. The fog thickened until the world shrank to a tunnel of gray. His headlights cut short, swallowed almost instantly. Then, through the fog, he saw the faint red glow of a neon tree. His stomach dropped. The sign flickered as he passed it. Sycamore Motor Inn vacancy. He slammed the brakes, tires hissing on wet pavement. The motel stood ahead, identical, even the same puddle reflecting the same flicker. He backed up hard, spun the wheel, tried another direction. The road behind him stretched, empty, but as soon as he cleared the next curve, the same sign waited. No matter which way he turned, the motel found him. He stopped the car in the middle of the road and just stared at the steering wheel, fingers tight. His breath fogged the windshield. The GPS on his phone came to life by itself. The screen glowed white. Map zoomed in on a single blue dot. The voice spoke, calm and mechanical. Proceed to your destination. He whispered, no, proceed to your destination. The arrow spun in a slow circle, then settled. 103 Sycamore Road. He turned the phone off and tossed it onto the seat. He got out of the car. The air was colder now, sharp in his lungs. The highway was silent in every direction. Not a sound of another engine, not even wind. He walked to the shoulder, looked down. The fog moved like water, swirling slow, and beneath it he thought he saw outlines, old tire tracks, faint shapes of shoes, all leading one way, back toward the motel. When he turned around, the car was gone. He blinked, spun again, heart pounding. Empty road, and behind him, closer than it should have been, stood the motel. The neon tree buzzed once, bright and red against the gray. He whispered, no, I left. The parking lot was empty. His room window was dark, but the light behind 103's curtain was on again. He walked forward without deciding to. The sound of his footsteps didn't echo. Each step felt softer, like the ground was giving way just enough to take him in. When he reached the walkway, Marla was standing outside the office. Same cardigan, same faint smile, but something about her face was off, too still, too smooth, like a photograph of a person instead of the person herself. You tried to leave, she said softly. He nodded. I did. Her smile didn't move. Most do. He swallowed. How many come back? All of them, she said. He looked past her. I saw his note. Ray. He said he checked out. Marla's voice turned quiet. Maybe he did. Maybe this is where you end up when you finally do. The fog thickened again, curling around her legs like water. Her shape wavered, like heat above pavement. Caleb took a step back. What are you? I keep the keys, she said simply. Someone has to. The neon light flickered, painting her face red, then white, then red again. He said, I'm not staying. She nodded. Of course not. Her hand rose, palm open. Something small and brass glinted in it. The key. Your room's ready. Caleb shook his head, backing away. No, I gave that back. Her voice was gentle. You can't give it back once it knows your name. She placed it on the counter, the sound sharp, metallic. Go on, she said. The water's warm. He looked down. The key tag still said 103, but the handwriting beneath it was new. Caleb R. He turned and ran. The fog swallowed the parking lot, the road, the sign. He ran until his lungs burned, until the world turned gray all over again. Then, ahead of him, through the haze, a neon tree flickered alive, red, steady, waiting. By the time Caleb stopped running, The fog had already closed around him. The motel wasn't behind him anymore, it was just there, no matter where he turned. Every direction looked the same. The parking lot, the red neon tree, the line of doors fading into mist. Hettried counting the steps between rooms, but each time the numbers came out different. There carried that same faint scent again, pine cleaner, old coffee, rain that never ends. He found himself back near the lobby door without realizing how. Marla wasn't outside anymore. The sign in the window still read open, though the lights inside were dim. He stepped in slowly. The radio still played its soft, ghost-like tune, the kind of song that never seems to end or begin. On the counter sat the same guest ledger from before, still open, but now there were more names. He leaned over. The handwriting wasn't Marla's neat loops, it was sharp, uneven, frantic. Dozens of entries had appeared under room 103 since the last time he'd seen the book. Names he didn't recognize, years that didn't make sense. L. Carter, 1982R, Nguyen, 1994S, Tanner, 2006M, Ortiz, 2017C, Rains, 2025, checkout, pending. He stared at the last line until the letters seemed to move, like ink still wet. His name, C. Rains, written in the same shaky scrawl. He whispered, "I didn't write that." The radio crackled suddenly, voice breaking through the static. A man's voice, calm and old, like someone reading the weather report on a station that shouldn't exist anymore. Today's forecast, fog rolling in from all directions. Expect delays. The static swallowed the words again. Caleb closed the book. His hands were shaking. He turned to leave and nearly tripped over something on the floor, an old leather wallet, cracked and soaked from the damp. Inside, the ID card was faded, photo long gone, but the name was still legible. A.L. Ray. He froze. Same name from the old ledger. Same ghost still checking in. A noise came from behind the front desk. Not footsteps, more like something shifting through paper. A slow, deliberate scrape. He leaned over the counter. The drawer Marla had kept the keys in was open now, overflowing. Hundreds of brass tags, each one engraved with 103. They caught the dim light like dull coins. He reached out, picked one up. It was warm, too warm. He dropped it instantly. The rest shifted like something underneath them had breathed. He backed away, heart hammering. The air in the lobby had turned heavy again, the kind of thick that means a storm's close but never comes. He turned toward the door, but stopped. There, on the bulletin board beside the vending machine, hung a row of Polaroid photos. The edges had curled from age. Each one showed the same hallway outside room 103. Different years, same angle. In some, the door was shut, in others slightly open. But in every photo, a shadow stood just behind the curtain faint, almost human but not quite. The last photo wasn't old at all. It was glossy, fresh. He reached up and pulled it from the pin. The bottom had a timestamp in red. Taken, 2:37 a.m. The figure behind the curtain this time was clear. It was him. He dropped the photo. The room temperature dropped instantly, like the air itself had flinched. The radio cut off mid-song. From somewhere down the hall came a faint metallic sound, keys falling to the floor, one after another, a slow scatter of echoes. He called out, "Marla?" Nothing. He stepped into the hall, every instinct screaming to turn back, but curiosity had become a kind of gravity now. The walls felt narrower. The carpet squelched faintly under his shoes, as though it remembered footsteps. He reached room 103 again. The door was closed, light on behind the curtains. The do not disturb tag was gone. He whispered to the door, "Who are you?" The light flickered once, as if answering. He stepped closer. His reflection looked back at him in the small brass number plate above the handle. The numbers 103 were warped by his shape. Then something moved inside. Slow, steady, like a person walking in circles. He took out his phone again. The screen lit immediately this time, bright and clear. A notification blinked. New video saved. Room 103,007.mp4. He hadn't recorded anything. He opened the file. The video showed him standing exactly where he was right now. Outside the same door, in the same clothes. The timestamp read 2:37 a.m., but in the video, the door opened. He stepped inside. The light swallowed him. The camera dropped to the floor, pointing at the ceiling. The last frame showed a hand closing the door from the inside. Then the video ended. Caleb stood frozen, phone trembling in his grip. His reflection in the number plate flickered again, and for a moment it smiled. He dropped the phone. From behind the door came the faint, rhythmic sound of dripping water. He turned and ran back to the lobby. The fog was already spilling through the cracks under the door. The radio turned itself on again. The same soft, static whisper. Room 103, it said. "Now checking in." Caleb didn't remember falling asleep, but when he opened his eyes again, the The world outside the lobby windows was red. Not the red of sunrise or brake lights, just the constant pulse of the neon tree outside, flickering slow and steady like a heartbeat on life support. Marla stood behind the counter again, motionless, eyes fixed on something only she could see. The ledger was open. Her finger traced a line across the page again and again, the way a person hums without realizing it. He stepped closer. Marla. She didn't move. He said her name louder. Marla. This time her eyes shifted toward him, slow, as if returning from far away. You're still here. He forced a dry laugh. Looks like I don't have much choice. Her gaze lowered to his hand. You went in, didn't you? He swallowed. I had to see it. I saw the suitcase, the note, the mirror. She nodded once. Then it's already started. What is? The remembering. He frowned. You're going to have to start making sense. Marla finally moved, slowly closing the ledger, her hand trembling slightly. This place isn't haunted the way people think. It doesn't have ghosts. It has echoes. Echoes of what? People who tried to leave something behind, she said softly. Regret, fear, guilt, it all sticks. And some of it sticks to the place itself. Room 103 was where it started. Mr. Ray came here to disappear. The room made sure he did. Caleb stared. You're saying it killed him? Marla shook her head. No, it remembered him too well. Every sound he made, every word he spoke. When he stopped existing out there, she gestured vaguely toward the fog outside. The room didn't know what to do with all that memory, so it started replaying it. He rubbed his forehead. And now it's replaying me. Her expression softened, almost pitying. You came because you were tired, didn't you? Not just the road, everything. You said you wanted quiet. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. She went on. That's what this place does. It finds the quiet parts of people and gives them room. He exhaled sharply. That's not peace. That's a trap. Marla looked away. Sometimes they're the same thing. The air between them grew colder. Outside, the fog thickened again, pressing against the glass like something alive. He said, You could have warned me. I did, she said quietly. I told you not to use the key. He slammed his hand on the counter, voice cracking. Then why give it to me? Her eyes lifted. Because you asked. Nobody ever forces anyone here. The room just opens for those who are ready to stay. He took a step back. I'm not ready. I want out. Marla smiled faintly, almost kind. Then go. He blinked. What? The door's open, she said. You can always leave. He turned toward the glass doors. The fog had cleared enough to show the empty road. The sign outside buzzed, letters half dead, vacancy. He took a slow step forward. If I walk out, will it let me go? Marla's voice followed him like a whisper. It always lets you go. He stopped. But it remembers where you're going. He turned. What does that mean? She tilted her head. You'll find out when you get there. He started toward the door anyway. The air pressed harder like walking through water. The bell above the door jingled once, flat and dull. Outside, the world looked normal gray sky, slick road, faint sound of wind. He took another step, then another. Behind him, Marla's voice called softly, Don't look back. He froze. Then, because humans are wired to ruin themselves, he looked. The motel wasn't there. Not the lobby, not the parking lot, not the neon tree. Just empty space filled with fog. And Marla standing right where he'd left her was gone. He turned back toward the road. It was empty, endless. No cars, no horizon. Only the faint hum of something electrical behind the fog. He started walking. For a while it worked. The ground felt solid. The air moved. Then he saw it again. Faint red glow in the distance. The motel, closer than before. He stopped walking. The fog coiled around his ankles like it was waiting. He whispered, No. From the fog came Marla's voice, soft, far away. The sound of an intercom that never really turns off. Checkout time's over, Caleb. He turned in a slow circle. The fog pressed closer. The air smelled faintly of coffee and pine cleaner again. He ran. The red glow grew brighter. The sound of running water filled the air, steady and familiar. When he reached the lot, the motel was whole again. The neon tree buzzed like nothing had ever happened. The door to room 103 stood open, light spilling out. Marla stood beside it, calm as always. Welcome back. He shook his head, tears stinging his eyes. No, you're not real. Her voice was soft. Neither are memories. But they still keep you up at night. She turned and walked into the room. The door began to close behind her. He ran to stop it. The light swallowed her first, then him, then everything else. When Caleb opened his eyes again, the world was bright, too bright. For a few seconds, he thought he was back home, his apartment in Nashville. Sunlight spilling through the blinds, the hum of traffic outside. The air even smelled like city air, dust and asphalt instead of pine cleaner and fog. He sat up slowly. The sheets were white, crisp. A TV remote lay on the nightstand beside a wrapped bar of soap, a bottle of water, and a folded room service menu. Everything was too neat, too symmetrical. He swung his legs over the side of the bed. His shoes were still on. His duffel bag sat by the door. He whispered, I made it out. It almost sounded true. The clock on the dresser blinked 8:23 a.m. Sunlight poured through the half-open curtains. Outside, he could hear the distant sound of a truck starting. A woman laughing, the squeak of a cart's wheel. Real sounds. He stood heart light for the first time in what felt like years. He grabbed his bag, slung it over his shoulder, and turned toward the door. That's when he noticed the key on the nightstand. Small, brass, tarnished. He froze. The tag read 103. His pulse jumped. "No," he said softly. "Not again." He picked it up, turned it over. On the back, scratched faintly into the metal, were 2 words. "Check in." He dropped it instantly. It hit the floor with a dull, heavy sound that didn't match its size. He looked around the room again. It was different, newer, but the bones were the same layout, same distance between the bed and the bathroom, same angle of the TV toward the door. The only thing missing was the sound of running water. He walked to the bathroom anyway, heart hammering. The sink gleamed. The tiles were spotless. But when he wiped the mirror with his sleeve, a faint streak appeared like a handprint underneath the glass instead of on top of it. And then, just barely visible, words formed again, as though written in fog that hadn't yet cooled. "Welcome back. Caleb!" He stumbled backward, hit the wall, and slid down to the floor. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." He reached for his phone, desperate for a signal, a timestamp, anything to prove this was real. The screen came alive instantly. Full bars, full battery. The date said July 19th, 1971. He stared until the numbers blurred. The phone vibrated once, then again. A notification slid across the top. New reservation confirmed, Sycamore Motor Inn, room 103. He dropped the phone like it had burned him. The vibration continued, pulsing against the floor until it fell silent. He stood and ran to the door, flung it open. The parking lot outside was unfamiliar. Different cars, different sign. This one read Maple Star Lodge, bright and clean, red cursive glowing against a pale blue sky. People walked by carrying luggage. Birds called from the power lines. Everything looked alive, but when he glanced at the far end of the lot, there it was, an old vending machine humming softly, its light flickering in exactly the same rhythm as the one at Sycamore, and right beside it, room 103, same position, same curtain, half drawn, light bleeding through the edges. He whispered, "It followed me." A woman walked past him, smiling politely. "First time here?" she asked. He nodded without thinking. She pointed toward the lobby. "They've got great coffee in the mornings. Just ask for Marla." His blood went cold. He turned to look at her fully. She was already walking away, heading toward a parked car. He stared at the office door for a long moment, willing it to be a coincidence. Then he saw the shadow move behind the blinds. A familiar silhouette, hair pinned up, cardigan draped across narrow shoulders. Marla. He backed away slowly. The fog wasn't there this time, but the air had that same heaviness, that same taste of rain that hadn't fallen yet. He whispered, "You said I could go." The lobby light flickered once, as if in answer. He turned and ran toward the street. The asphalt was warm, the sun bright, but every sign pointed back the same direction. Rooms available. Vacancy, check in now. He kept walking until his legs ached, but every corner, every turn brought another motel, another sign, another building shaped the same way. Each one had a room 103. Each one had a light on. Each one waited for him. He finally stopped, standing in the middle of the road. Cars passed, drivers staring straight ahead, not seeing him. His phone buzzed again. One more notification. Check-in confirmed. "Thank you for choosing Sycamore Motor Inn." He looked around at the endless road, the repeating buildings, the infinite doorways. Somewhere, faintly, the water started running again. By noon, Caleb found a gas station diner 2 exits down the highway. It looked real enough cars out front, a waitress carrying plates. The hum of life he hadn't heard in days. The bell over the door jingled like a small mercy. He sat at the counter, ordered black coffee, and tried to slow his breathing. The cup was warm, solid. The world was solid. Maybe it had all been a hallucination, sleep deprivation, bad luck, a dream stitched out of exhaustion. The waitress refilled his cup without asking. Her name tag said M. The rest of the letters rubbed away. She smiled politely. Passing through. He hesitated. "Something like that. Where are you headed?" she asked. He looked out the window. The highway stretched straight and endless. "Anywhere else?" She chuckled softly. "Aren't we all?" He almost smiled. For the first time in days, the air didn't feel like it was pressing against him. He took a sip. "Do you know a place called the Sycamore Motor Inn?" The waitress stopped mid-pour. The sound of coffee dripping hit the countertini dark drops. She looked at him slowly. "Why?" He shrugged, trying to play it off. "Stayed there a couple nights. Weird place. Thought it might have closed." Her eyes didn't blink for a full 3 seconds. Then she smiled again, a little too wide. "Oh, that old thing. Been gone years. Gone. Burned down in the 70s. Nobody rebuilt it." He froze. "That's not possible." "I was just there." She poured another cup, steady now. "Honey, lots of people say that." He stared at her. "What do you mean, lots?" But she had already turned to the next customer. Caleb reached for his phone again, pulled up the photo gallery. Every image was gone except one. A single picture remained. A hallway lined with doors, number 103 glowing faintly under yellow light. He zoomed in. The reflection of a woman stood at the far end of the hall, Marla, holding Aki. The phone vibrated in his hand. A new text appeared from unknown. You forgot to check out. He dropped the phone. It clattered across the floor. The man sitting 2 stools down bent to pick it up. He handed it back with a small smile. Rough day? Caleb took it, fingers trembling. You ever hear of room 103? The man's smile didn't fade. Of course, Caleb blinked. You have? Sure, the man said. Every motel's got one. Something in his tone wasn't joking. Caleb's throat felt dry. What happens if you open it? The man stirred his coffee slowly, spoon tapping the cup in an odd rhythm, 3 slow, 1 quick. Depends who you are when you walk in. Nobody ever walks out the same. Who told you that? Caleb whispered. The man looked up. His eyes were calm, too calm. The manager. Caleb's stomach turned. Marla? The man tilted his head slightly, as if listening to a memory. That her name now? He stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. The noise made the other customers glance, but only for a moment, as if their curiosity had been switched off mid-thought. He left cash on the counter and stumbled outside. The sky was too bright, the air too still. He walked toward his car, every sound behind him suddenly muffled, like someone had put a wall between him and the world. As he reached for the door handle, a woman stepped out of the diner behind him. Hey, she called. You left this. He turned. She held something small and brass between her fingers. The key. Must have dropped it, she said cheerfully. He shook his head, backing away. No, that's not mine. She frowned. Says otherwise. He looked closer. The tag glinted in the sunlight. The number wasn't 103 anymore. It read 14. He took another step back. Keep it, she shrugged, slipping it into her apron pocket. Suit yourself. He got into the car, slammed the door, started the engine. The GPS blinked awake again, screen bright, voice calm. Proceed to your destination. He hit cancel. The screen froze. Proceed to your destination. Shut up, he muttered. Proceed to your destination. He yanked the phone cord out. The voice didn't stop. Destination confirmed. Check-in pending. He threw the phone onto the passenger seat. The radio came alive. No input, no static, just a woman's voice humming the same slow tune from the motel lobby, the one the radio there had played on loop. He gripped the wheel, knuckles white. No! The rearview mirror flickered once. In its reflection, the diner was gone. In its place, a familiar shape rows of rooms, faded paint, a red neon tree humming softly against a gray sky. He slammed the accelerator. The engine roared. The mirror shook violently, but their reflection didn't change. The motel followed, its sign flickering in rhythm with his heartbeat. He looked once more in the mirror and saw movement. Someone standing in front of room 103, waving slowly. Marla, her voice filled the car, calm and near. You left your key. Caleb, he screamed. I don't have it! But when he looked down, the brass tag sat in the cup holder, gleaming softly under the dashboard light. The number had changed again. Room 103. The air inside the car grew heavy, dense with the faint smell of pine and old rain, and from the vents came the sound of running water. Caleb parked behind the gas station and shut the engine off. The world fell silent in an instant, the kind of silence that isn't peace but pause. He sat there breathing shallow, watching his hands tremble on the steering wheel. They didn't feel like his anymore. Thesmol of wet asphalt mixed with that faint motel scent that shouldn't have followed him. Old coffee and pine disinfectant. He told himself he'd wait till morning. Someone would drive by. Someone normal. He'd explain what happened, laugh about how crazy it sounded, get help, get distance. Distance was all that mattered. At 1:04 a.m., his phone lit up again. No ringtone, just light. A new message. We still have your card on file. Late checkouts are subject to charge. He dropped the phone like it had bitten him. It hit the floor mat and kept buzzing. Would you like to extend your stay? He kicked it under the seat, pressed both hands over his ears. But the sound didn't stop. It wasn't a ring now. It was water, faint, steady dripping from somewhere inside the car. He looked up. The rearview mirror was fogged, condensation crawling across the glass from the inside. He wiped it with his sleeve. A face looked back that wasn't his. It was a man in his 50s, hair slicked back, gray suit, eyes calm. A.L. Ray. Caleb gasped. Jerked around, the back seat was empty. When he looked again, the mirror was clear. He grabbed the door handle and stepped into the night air, chest tight. The world outside was utterly still. The convenience store lights flickered once, then went dark. The payphone by the door began to ring. He approached it slowly, breath fogging in the cold. 1 ring, 2, 3. He lifted the receiver. Hello? Static hissed for a long time before a familiar voice slid through it. Housekeeping. Marla, we've received a few complaints about noise. There's no one here, he shouted. There never is, she said gently. The line clicked dead. He hung up, turned and froze. Across the lot, a family was pulling into a sedan. Mother, father, teenage daughter yawning in the back seat. They looked tired, road-worn normal. Their headlights caught him standing there, but they didn't stop. He jogged toward them, waving. Hey, stop! You can't go that way. The father rolled his window down halfway, wary. Everything okay, buddy? Caleb pointed back toward the highway. Don't take exit 237. Don't stop at the Sycamore Motor Inn. The man frowned. Never heard of it. His wife leaned across. Sure you have. It's the one with the red tree sign. Caleb's stomach turned to ice. What? Pretty spot, she said dreamily. We almost booked there tonight, but it was full. He shook his head violently. No, it's not. It's not real. The daughter in the back seat lifted her phone. It says there's a vacancy now. He lunged forward, shouting, Don't! The engine revved. The father hit the gas. The taillights vanished into the dark, swallowed by fog that hadn't been there a moment ago. He stood in the road until the silence came back. Then, faintly, over the distant hum of the highway, he heard it again. The sound of tires on wet gravel, a car door closing, the jingle of a Motel bell. They'd arrived. He sank to his knees. God, please no. His own phone buzzed where it lay under the seat. He crawled back to grab it. New messages scrolled one after another. Guest checked in room 103. Guest checked in room 103. Guest checked in room 103. Dozens, hundreds. The screen flooded with identical notifications, each with a different timestamp, a different year. He dropped it again, heart hammering. The neon reflection on the windshield shimmered, faint, red, pulsing. He looked up. In the reflection, the gas station sign had changed. The letters warped, glowing faintly through the mist. YCAMOREMOTORINN. The light flickered once. The fog rolled closer. Behind him, the payphone began ringing again, faster this time, overlapping rings like a countdown. He covered his ears. Stop! The phone went silent. Then a voice right behind him whispered, Calm and close. Check-in confirmed. He spun around, swinging blindly. Nothing, just the smell again. Pine, dust, rain. The fog thickened until the world was only red light and shadow. Somewhere inside it, a door creaked open. A woman's silhouette stepped through, hair pinned up, cardigan soft in the glow. Marla. She smiled gently. You brought new guests. That was kind. He stumbled backward. No, I tried to warn them. They heard you, she said. That's why they came. He stared, speechless. She looked almost sad. It spreads when you remember. Every story is an open door. He shook his head. I'm not part of this. She reached out, fingertips brushing his sleeve. You already checked in, Caleb. You've been here since the first word you said out loud. Behind her, more shapes emerged through the red haze silhouettes carrying luggage, murmuring softly, eyes empty. Each one paused before her counter. Each one accepted Aki. Every tag read 103. Marla handed one to him last. Yours. He looked down. The number gleamed faintly. Underneath it, fresh engraving caught the light. Manager on duty. She smiled. Someone has to keep the books. The red glow swallowed the parking lot. The fog closed in like curtains. When it cleared, the Sycamore Motor Inn sign hummed steady again. The lobby light burned warm. Behind the desk, a man in a wrinkled shirt and tired eyes straightened the ledger and waited for the next traveler. Name, A.L. Ray. Manager, C. Rains. Room 103. Occupied. And outside, the neon tree buzzed, patient and eternal, its red light spilling onto the wet road for whoever would stop next. It had been 3 nights since Kalebno, Mr. Rains, took over the front desk. The air inside the Sycamore Motor Inn had settled back into its rhythm, like the pause between heartbeats. The radio played that same soft tune on loop again. The neon tree outside hummed faintly, reflecting in the glass door, pulsing red, white, red in a patient, endless rhythm. He stood behind the counter, polishing the brass keys that never stayed clean. No matter how much he wiped, faint fingerprints always reappeared, his own. Or maybe someone else's. He couldn't tell anymore. The tags all read 103. They clinked softly together, a music of metal and memory. The clock above the counter said 2:37 a.m. It always said 2:37 a.m. He looked up at the sound of footsteps outside. Tires rolled over wet gravel. Headlights swept across the lot, carving pale lines through the fog. A car door closed. Luggage wheels rattled. He straightened his tie without thinking. Welcome to the Sycamore Motor Inn, he rehearsed quietly. The words came naturally now, like muscle memory. A bell jingled. The lobby door opened, letting in a brief gust of cold air and the faint smell of rain. A man stepped inside, mid-30s, tired, the look of someone who had been driving too long. He hesitated, squinting under the yellow light. Hey, the man said, voice low. You still got rooms? Caleb smiled the way he remembered Marla smiling. Always. The man glanced around. You got Wi-Fi? Place looks old. Caleb's smile didn't change. We have everything you need. He turned the guest ledger around. The man picked up the pen and signed his name. D. Harper. Caleb slid a key toward him. Brass, worn, engraved, 103. The man frowned. Don't you have any others? Caleb shook his head gently. Just the one. The man shrugged, pocketed the key. Guess I'll take it. As he left, Caleb called softly, Don't use the bathroom after midnight. The man paused. Why not? Caleb smiled again. Plumbing's old. When the door shut, the silence came back, thicker than before. He stood still for a long time, listening. Above him, the ceiling creaked once. Then the faint, distant sound of dripping started up again. He closed the ledger, turned the lamp off, and walked toward the back office. The hallway was dark except for the flicker of the exit sign. Every room he passed was empty but not dead, just waiting. He stopped at 103. The door was closed. Light leaked from under the threshold, slow and warm, pulsing like breath. He could almost hear it, soft movement inside, a voice murmuring words too faint to understand. He placed his palm against the door. The wood was warm. He whispered, "You're not me anymore." The whisper came back through the door, softer but perfectly clear. "You never were." He stepped back, heart heavy and calm at once. The air smelled faintly of pine again. He turned toward the window at the end of the hall. The fog outside glowed red from the neon. He could see the faint reflection of his own face in the glass, but it wasn't his anymore. His features were softer, blurred, a little like Marla's. He touched his cheek, testing the skin. It felt colder than it should have. He walked back to the counter, sat down on the old stool and pulled the ledger closer. Ink bled slightly under his pen as he wrote the date, though the date never seemed to stick. The page always rearranged itself to read July 21st, 1971. He didn't fight it anymore. He just wrote the next name, D. Harper, room 103, checkout, pending. He set the pen down and leaned back, letting the chair creak. Outside, thunder rolled far away, soft and slow. The neon flickered once, twice, then steadied. A knock came from somewhere deep in the hallway. One knock, then another, then silence. Caleb didn't move. He just stared at the ledger until the ink settled. The clock on the wall didn't tick. The hands didn't move. TD7 a.m., always 2:37 a.m. He rubbed his eyes, exhaustion thick and old as dust. When he opened them, the reflection in the lobby window wasn't his anymore. Marla stood there instead, smiling faintly, watching him. He blinked, and she was gone. The radio clicked softly, like a record restarting. "Welcome back to the Sycamore Motor Inn," said a woman's voice, warm and clear. "Where the rooms are always ready," Caleb whispered, "and never empty." Then he turned off the lamp one by one, until the lobby was dark again. The neon tree outside kept humming, its light stretching across the fog, waiting for the next traveler who thought they were just passing through. Before Caleb, before the endless nights and the looping fog, before the whispers that crawled through the vents, there was just Marla. In July 1971, the Sycamore Motor Inn was still new. The neon tree had just been installed that spring. The wallpaper was fresh. The carpet smelled like new glue, and the sign outside still promised color TV in every room. Marla was 26, newly widowed, soft-voiced, the kind of woman who never complained about the night shift. She worked the front desk 6 nights a week, watching travelers come and go, truckers, families, quiet men who never left their names. She liked the stillness between midnight and dawn, the way the world seemed to pause and hold its breath. Her manager back then was a man named Andrew Ray Polite, tall, the kind of man who always had a handkerchief ready. He owned the place, ran it himself, smiled when he said, "Every traveler just needs a clean bed and a little kindness." Marla. But that summer, the quiet changed. It started with room 103. A traveling salesman checked in one rainy night, name forgotten, face ordinary. He'd asked for a room away from the road. Marla had handed him the key to 103 without thinking. An hour later, she heard something, not shouting, not fighting, just a low, steady murmur, like someone talking in their sleep. By morning, the man was gone, his suitcase still in the room, bed unmade, sink running. Mr. Ray called the police. They found nothing. No signs of struggle. No signs of exit. Theman's car was still parked outside. Mr. Ray shrugged it off, told her people vanish all the time. "He'll turn up somewhere," he said. "They always do." But that night, the phone in the lobby rang at 2:37 a.m. Marla answered. "Front desk," she said softly. A man's voice whispered, "I'd like to check out now." She froze. "Sir, who is this?" The voice paused, then said, "Room 103. She went to look. The door was closed, light leaking from underneath. The same faint smell of rain and cleaner filled the hall. She knocked. "Sir?" No answer. She opened the door. The room was perfect. The bed remade. The suitcase gone. Only the key remained, resting on the pillow. The tag gleamed faintly in the light. 103. When she picked it up, the air inside the room seemed to tighten the way a house feels before a storm hits. The clock on the wall ticked once, then stopped at 2:37. From the bathroom came a soft dripping sound. She turned the faucet off. The dripping continued. She looked up. The mirror was fogged, though the air was cool, and through the fog, words appeared slowly, each letter sliding across the glass like it had always been there. "Don't leave it empty." Marla stumbled back, knocking into the sink. The faucet burst open again, spraying water onto the floor. She turned to run and stopped. Mr. Ray stood in the doorway, eyes calm, voice low. "It's all right, Marla," she gasped. "What's happening?" He stepped inside. "It doesn't like to be empty. It remembers people. It keeps them." "What do you mean it?" He smiled, that same patient smile he'd always had. "Places like this, they fill up with what's left behind. Fear, loneliness, guilt. Somebody's got to look after all that." She shook her head. "You're scaring me." He took her hand gently, placed the brass key in her palm. "You'll understand soon enough." Then he walked into the bathroom and closed the door. The sound of water grew louder, deeper, until it didn't sound like water anymore. She waited, knocked, called his name. Nothing. When she finally opened the door, the room was empty. No Mr. Ray, no reflection in the mirror, just the key tag, warm against her hand. The dripping stopped. The silence that followed was thick and endless. When the police came later, they said he must have run off. That people snap sometimes, leave everything behind. But the motel didn't feel empty. Not anymore. The guests started whispering about strange noises, faucets running by themselves, keys that moved overnight, and always, at 2:37 a.m., the front desk phone would ring once. No one on the other end. Marla kept working anyway. What else was there to do? One night a storm hit. Lightning, thunder, wind like screaming. She tried to lock the doors, but room 103 stood wide open, curtain whipping like a living thing. She went inside to close the window. The clock on the wall ticked once after years of silence and stopped again at 2:37. When the storm cleared, the neon sign still glowed, but the lobby was empty. A new manager came months later, found the place running perfectly. The books balanced, the rooms clean, the front desk bell polished, and behind the counter, a woman in a cardigan smiled and said, "Welcome to the Sycamore Motor Inn. Room 103 is ready." He never asked her name. By morning, the storm was gone. The world looked washed clean sky, a dull silver, road slick and shining, the air so still it almost hummed. The Sycamore Motor Inn stood quiet, its paint damp, its windows fogged from the night before. The neon tree buzzed softly in the half-light, red letters flickering. Vacancy. Caleb, or what was left of him, stood behind the counter. His shirt was dry now. His hands didn't tremble anymore. He felt calm, too calm. Like a story that had already ended and was just being told again out of habit. The ledger lay open before him. The ink from the last page had bled slightly from the rain. The names blurred together. One long continuous line. Ray, Marla, Rains, Harper. The rest unreadable, like they'd melted into the paper. He closed the book gently, ran his fingers across the worn leather cover and listened. Nothing. No radio. No dripping. No voices. For the first time, the motel felt empty. He walked out onto the porch, the wooden boards creaking softly under his shoes. The air smelled of wet earth and electricity. Fog hung low over the parking lot, curling around the wheels of the cars that had been there since forever. He looked out at the road. A single car was coming down the hill, dark blue, headlights on, engine humming softly. He waited. It pulled in slow, crunching over gravel. The driver stepped out, a young woman this time, early 30s, long dark hair tied back, tired eyes that had been awake too long. She stretched, yawned, looked up at the glowing sign. Then she smiled faintly, like something in her recognized the place. Caleb called softly, "Morning." She jumped a little, then laughed. "Oh, you scared me. Didn't think anyone was awake this early." He smiled the way Marla used to. "Always awake here." She glanced around. "Do you have any rooms left?" He looked at the keys hanging behind the counter. Dozens of them. All identical. All 103. He nodded. "Just one." She frowned. "One room? You're not full?" He handed her the tag. "We only ever need one." She turned it over, brow furrowed. "Weird numbering system," he chuckled softly. "It grows on you." She signed the ledger. "E. Turner." He said, "You'll like it here. It's quiet." Her eyes softened. "That's all I want." She took the key, smiled, and walked toward the row of rooms. The fog parted slightly as she moved, just enough to show the faded numbers painted on the doors. When she reached 103, she paused. The door stood open just a crack, as if it had been expecting her. She looked back at him. "It's already unlocked." He nodded once. "They usually are." She hesitated, then stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Caleb stood there a long time, listening. For a few minutes there was only silence. Then faintly from deep inside the motel, he heard it, the slow, steady sound of dripping water. He sighed, turned back toward the counter, and opened the ledger again. The pen was already waiting in his hand. He wrote the date, though the numbers never mattered. The page filled itself in quietly, as if it remembered the routine. E. Turner, room 103. Checkout pending. He closed the book and stared out at the fog. The neon tree flickered once, twice, then steadied, casting red light across the wet asphalt. The reflection looked like veins under glass glowing, spreading alive. He whispered, "Don't leave it empty." The radio clicked on by itself. That same soft tune began to play slow, endless, humming through the walls like a heartbeat. The wind picked up. Somewhere far down the highway, thunder rolled again, not loud, just enough to remind the world that the storm was never really gone. Caleb adjusted the bell on the counter, straightened the key hooks, and waited. Outside, the fog began to glow red again. Another car was coming. The rain started just before midnight. A thin drizzle at first, tapping gently against the glass, soft enough to sound like static from a radio half asleep. Caleb didn't notice it at first. He was too busy reading the old ledger again, tracing Marla's handwriting like someone trying to remember a dream. each name blurred into the next, years bleeding together. 81, 1982, 1994, 2006, 2017. No separation, just repetition. He whispered, "Don't leave it empty." Without realizing the words had come from his own mouth, the wind picked up outside, scraping branches against the sign. The neon tree flickered, humming louder with every flash of lightning. Then, somewhere deep in the motel's pipes, water began to run. He looked up, listening. It wasn't one faucet, it was all of them. Every room, every bathroom, every sink running at once. The sound filled the building like breath being drawn in before a scream. Caleb grabbed the flashlight and stepped into the hall. The wallpaper pulsed faintly under the beam, shadows moving where there shouldn't have been movement. The air smelled of old rain and something older metal. Maybe blood, maybe rust. He passed room 101, empty. 102, empty. Each door perfectly shut, each key missing from the hook. Then he reached 103. The door was open just a crack. Light leaked through. Not warm yellow, not cold blue, but something between both. Flickering like the film of two different worlds spliced together. He whispered, "Marla." The light stuttered in answer. He pushed the door open. The room inside wasn't the same one he remembered. The furniture had changed. The wallpaper was 1970s mustard yellow again. The TV was an old box model with rabbit ear antennas. Rain lashed the window, outside real rain, the kind that stung glass and drowned out thought. And sitting on the bed, her back to him, was Marla. Her hair was pinned up, her cardigan gray. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the mirror, as if she were made of water. Caleb stepped forward. "I saw what happened to you." She didn't move. "I know what this place is now." Still nothing. Just the steady rhythm of rain, dripping, ticking, time refusing to move forward. He circled the bed slowly. When he finally saw her face, it wasn't hers anymore, it was his. Caleb stumbled back, gasping. His reflection on the TV screen blinked, even though he hadn't. The image flickered, Marla, Caleb, Mr. Ray, each one flashing in and out of frame like someone flipping through channels on the same soul. Lightning split the sky outside, white light bursting through the window. For half a second, Hess saw dozens of people standing outside in the rain past guests. Future guests, their silhouettes, shimmering like ghosts, caught between years. Then the thunder hit, shaking the walls. The clock on the dresser ticked once, then stopped again at 2:37 a.m. He whispered, "Please make it stop." The TV hissed back to life. A man's voice came through, calm and even, like a weatherman reading scripture. And tonight's forecast, fog rolling in from all directions. Expect delays. He backed away toward the door, flashlight trembling. "I can't do this anymore. I'm not you. I'm not her." The voice on the TV changed softer now. "Marla's. You're not supposed to be anyone. You're supposed to be here." He shook his head violently. "No, I'm leaving." He turned, sprinted into the hall. The lights overhead buzzed violently, flickering between colors white, yellow, red, blue, each flash showing a different time. In one, the hallway was brand new, 1971, spotless and bright. In the next, it was faded, water-stained, then burnt, then pristine again. Each flash faster than the last, time folding in on itself until the hall felt like it was breathing. He stumbled, hands against the wall. "Stop, just stop!" The lights died all at once. Darkness, only the faint glow of the neon tree outside bleeding through the fogged window. Then, from somewhere down the hall came a sound, a key hitting the floor. He looked down, right by his feet. The brass key gleamed faintly. 103. He picked it up slowly. The metal was warm again, pulsing faintly, almost alive. The tag felt heavier this time. He turned it over. On the back, new words were engraved. "Don't leave it empty." He dropped it instantly, but when it hit the floor, the sound multiplied, dozens of identical keys raining down all around him, bouncing, clinking, filling the hall until he couldn't see the carpet. He fell to his knees, hands over his head. The noise grew deafening, a metallic downpour. Then, silence. When he looked up, the hallway was gone. He stood in the lobby again. The desk lamp glowed softly. The ledger lay open, and across the counter, Marla stood smiling faintly. "Long night?" she asked. He stared, too tired to speak. She slid a small brass key toward him. "You forgot to check in," he whispered. "What year is it?" Her smile didn't change. "Does it matter?" Outside, thunder rolled again. The red neon flickered once, then steadied, humming softly through the fog.